So, I'm sitting here at work, feeling super annoyed. I barely got to see my son at all this year. I couldn't have him over for the summer because of the whole COVID situation, and that's really gotten to me. Then to top it all off, I found out at the end of September that my wife, who I've been with for 5 years, has been cheating on me. Since then, I've been digging into everything like a detective, and it's just been this huge mess that seems to have no end. I've had to deal with her being around the house, acting like everything is normal when inside I'm boiling with anger. I want to just let loose, tell her off, and kick her out, but my lawyer keeps saying it's not the right time yet. I haven't been able to sleep in my own bed for almost 2 months now. I'm so fed up that I plan to get rid of that bed the second she leaves. On top of everything, we haven't been intimate, which somehow led her to accuse me of being the one who's cheating. Whenever she tries to be affectionate, I have to just stand there, and even though it makes me feel sick. When I look at her now, all I can imagine is bugs crawling all over her. I just want her out of my life, but I keep being told to wait. My patience is running thin. It's like being stuck in a room with someone who just keeps tapping on a table nonstop until you can't take it anymore and want to explode. I can't even talk to anyone about this mess because I'm supposed to keep quiet until the right moment. I'm really mad at myself for ending up in this situation again where I let someone betray me like this. All I want is for all of this to be over, and I really miss my son. A little update and some background info. I checked my wife's internet history, and yeah, I've been spying on her. It shows she hasn't been on Reddit for 6 months. At this point, I couldn't care less about that. I'm just trying to get through each day. Honestly, anyone who's been through finding out their partner cheated and managed to keep it to themselves until they could confront them properly, you have my total respect. This is incredibly tough. I got back home late on Sunday after a long 1,400-mile drive. That drive was actually kind of a relief because I didn't want to see or talk to her at all. I was exhausted, so I just crashed in my chair and fell asleep. That was the first decent night's sleep I've had in 2 months. I've lost 15 pounds and look and feel terrible, but getting those 8 hours of sleep was something at least. On Monday, my wife tried to get close and start something romantic, but honestly, I just couldn't feel any attraction towards her. It's not like I have any physical problems. Usually I wake up in the morning and everything's working just fine. It's just that, for the first time, my body and my feelings are on the same page about not wanting anything to do with her. This really made her upset, and we ended up having a big fight. During the argument, I tried to brush it off by saying maybe there's something wrong with me since I'm 50 and sometimes stuff just doesn't work the same. But then she started hinting again that I must be cheating on her. She accused me of not being a good husband and suggested that I must be having an affair because I hadn't told her I loved her in over 2 months. Basically, she was trying to make me feel guilty and doubt myself. Yeah, I was keeping something from her, but it was because I was putting all the pieces together of her cheating. I remember September 25th clearly because I had an accident at work. I fix cars that are really banged up, and that day, I cut my leg open pretty badly on a truck. It was a bad cut. I ended up needing a bunch of stitches, and they gave me some strong painkillers. I couldn't drive, so I tried calling my wife for a lift, but she didn't answer her phone no matter how many times I called or texted her saying I needed her. After waiting for her with no response, I finally took an Uber to get home. As we got close to my house, I saw her right there in our doorway, kissing the manager from her work. And I mean, they were really going at it, not just a quick kiss. She was supposed to be at her job. I quickly took some photos with my phone and then had the Uber driver take me back to my work. I just sat in the break room for hours feeling totally lost, feeling totally numb and heartbroken. After the painkillers for my leg injury wore off, I drove back home, hurting both physically from my leg and emotionally from everything swirling around in my mind. She wasn't there when I arrived. A couple of hours later, she came back and acted like she cared about how I was doing. I wasn't sure if she was really concerned or just pretending. I casually asked her about her day, and she gave me some made-up story about work. I knew right away her story was fake. A week later, I found out she hadn't actually been working on Fridays for the last 3 years. I hadn't really paid much attention to Reddit before, but suddenly I found myself searching for anything related to cheating, and I stumbled upon this subreddit and some YouTube videos. I started reading everything I could find here, ticking off all the warning signs that matched her behavior perfectly. She was always glued to her phone, texting nonstop, but somehow never available to answer my calls or texts. She had no clue that I had been trying to reach her from the emergency room, desperately needing her, for 2 whole months. She never even bothered to check our chat history. One day, she started complaining about me not being a good enough husband, saying I wasn't doing enough for her. That made me so angry. I grabbed my phone, pulled up our chat log, and shoved it in her face to show her all those unanswered messages. I hardly ever yell, but I couldn't help it this time. I told her loudly that the one time I really needed her, she just ignored me. She checked her phone, saw the messages, and then left the house for a few hours. When she came back, she tried to apologize and then lied straight to my face, claiming she was too busy at work that day to notice my calls and texts. The truth was, she was too caught up with her boss at our house to bother answering her phone. From that point until now, I've been keeping an eye on her every move. I checked her phone, laptop, iPad, and even set up cameras around the house. I discovered I could monitor all her activities using one of her old phones. For 2 months, I've been watching her betray me in real time. And you know what? I used to think Apple products were a waste, but not anymore. I've ended up pushing away 2 amazing women in my life because I was still messed up from what happened with my first wife. It wasn't just about her not loving me, but more about the tough time I went through after our divorce. I felt completely taken advantage of in that divorce. I ended up with only $1.43 to my name, no house, no car, no way to do my job, no support from my family, and I had to crash on friends' couches for years. Everything I earned went straight to alimony and paying off our shared debts. I was only 22 and felt like my life was over before it even really started. On my 24th birthday, I hit rock bottom, sitting on my friend's couch, drunk, feeling hopeless enough to consider ending my life. Since then, I've always kept $1.43 in my wallet as a reminder of that low point. I'm not in that dark place right now, but the feelings are similar. Sure, I'm older and made sure to protect myself better this time, but catching my wife cheating brought back all those bad memories. The first time I caught her, I had to come home early unexpectedly. Her excuse? It's not what it looks like. That situation escalated quickly and ended up affecting my divorce a lot, but at least it was clear-cut. There was no denying what happened. All the therapy I've had seemed wasted now, as I'm back to feeling deceived and lied to constantly. She lies even when there's no reason to, and it feels like she's betraying me over and over. I've lost all love for her. There's no fixing this. Our anniversary is on Pearl Harbor Day, and I'm determined to make it memorable for her, but not in a good way. I'm just exhausted. The stress has given me a constant headache. Despite all the progress I thought I made in therapy, it feels like I'm back to square one. Yesterday, I finally had her served with divorce papers. I wasn't ready to talk about it then, and I'm still processing everything. I left early in the morning, got some breakfast, and waited for her to go to work. Then I rented a truck, went back home, and changed the locks. With the help of a friend and her husband, plus another friend they brought, we packed up all her stuff. We took out the bedroom furniture I had bought her as a wedding gift, my couch, my dining table, basically everything she had tainted. We moved it all into storage and threw her clothes into garbage bags. So, after everything went down, my friend, who I found out was covering for my wife's affair, didn't spill the beans to her right away. He probably had his own mess to deal with. But later on, my wife texted me, super mad, asking why I blabbed about the affair to her friend. So, it turns out he did end up telling her. Then Amber, the friend who was covering for my wife, started blowing up my phone. I picked up and got straight to the point, asking Amber how long she knew about my wife's affair. I told her not to lie to me. And just like I thought, she knew the entire time, even before my wife and I got together. So, my entire marriage was based on a lie, which was a tough reality to face. I asked Amber why she never told me about the affair. She said she was afraid I'd lose it and get violent. But I reminded her she knew me better than that. She admitted she kept quiet because my wife was her friend. I asked her, if the roles were reversed, wouldn't she want to know if her husband was cheating? She agreed she would. So, I ended the call, sent her some incriminating photos my wife had taken, gave her my lawyer's contact, and told her we're done talking. Later that day, my wife came home and freaked out when she realized I changed the locks. She banged on the door and screamed for a while, even broke a window, but eventually left. By evening, 2 deputies showed up, one of whom helped me move my wife's stuff earlier. My wife came back, looking all defeated, probably after having a showdown with Amber. I handed her the clothes, a storage key, and my lawyer's card, making it clear she should only contact me through the lawyer from now on. She started with the whole, "I love you, we can fix this" spiel, but I wasn't having any of it. She tried to argue it was her house too, but I told her she pretty much locked herself out of it and our life together. Things got really intense when she started yelling. Her "I love yous" quickly changed into a bunch of angry words and insults. The deputies had to turn on their lights because of the commotion, and some neighbors even came out to see what was happening. I tried to stay calm and didn't react much, just kept my hands by my sides while she yelled at me. She seemed like she might have been drinking. Then she began to cry, saying she had nowhere to go. When I told her I didn't care, she surprised me by throwing a punch, giving me a fat lip and a bloody nose. I didn't fight back or try to stop her, just let her vent her anger. She also tried to scratch my face, but the deputies stepped in and restrained her. I chose not to press charges against her. I just wanted her to leave. The deputies made a report, which could help me later on. Honestly, I'm kind of relieved she acted out like that. After she was gone, I started to feel all the emotions I'd been holding back for the last 2 months. I'm really tired now. I thought I'd feel better after everything came out into the open, but I don't. I've been really upset and crying a lot, which isn't like me. My phone's been blowing up with almost 600 texts and calls that I haven't answered. I'm avoiding our mutual friends right now because I don't want anyone trying to fix things between us. I didn't call my son like I usually do every night. I'll talk to him tonight, though. He probably won't be too upset. He never really liked her much. On a more recent note, we signed the divorce papers today. It wasn't exactly everything I wanted, but it was enough for an uncontested divorce, which should be finalized in about 2 months. That's a bit of good news, though I'm still feeling really sad about everything. During the divorce meeting, she barely looked at me, which made me think she just couldn't face me. Her lawyers seemed to know he was dealing with a tough situation. They even asked if getting back together was an option, but we all knew it wasn't. We demanded she fully disclose everything she did, which she had already written down. So when I read what my wife had written down about who she cheated with, she left out a couple of guys I didn't know about. My lawyer showed her photos from our security cameras and asked, "Who are these guys?" But she wasn't exactly eager to spill the beans. They asked us to leave the room for a bit, and when we came back, her lawyer wasn't too happy. Turns out the 2 mystery guys were from recent online hookups. She admitted to cheating on me pretty much from the start, but claimed she stopped seeing the other guys shortly after we got engaged and for the first year of our marriage. Even though I don't feel like I should believe anything she says, I asked her if she was ever really faithful to me. That's when she confessed to cheating with my coworker's husband last 4th of July, and even worse, it happened at our house during a barbecue we hosted. This past year, she got even more daring, meeting up with random guys she found online. I didn't even bother asking about all the details, like if she had met up with anyone in parking lots or whatever. I wanted to talk to her alone for a bit, so I asked the lawyers to give us some privacy. I asked her all the whys. Why cheat? Why marry me? Why not just say no if she didn't want to be with me? She claimed she loved me and wanted the security of marriage, but also admitted she's been in love with one of the guys for 10 years. She saw me as a secure option since her time was ticking away. Turns out, both she and the guy she was cheating with got fired because my coworker Amber made a huge fuss at work. My soon-to-be ex-wife is now staying with her parents, and I'm not sure what's happening with the other guy and his wife. She dropped another bombshell, saying she had an abortion 2 years ago because she wasn't sure who the father was. We had tried for a kid early on, then just enjoyed being together. I could have been the dad, but now I'll never know. That was enough for me to just walk out. People say I dodged a bullet, but to me it feels like she took something irreplaceable from me. If you've ever boxed, you know there's a point where you stop feeling the punches. They're hitting you, doing damage, but you're just numb to the pain because it's all too much. That's exactly how I feel right now. She could say she's responsible for any crazy thing, like starting the Chicago fire, and I wouldn't even blink. I called the lawyers back and switched up my strategy. I dropped my demand for alimony because I just want this divorce over and done with as quickly as possible. I joked about making her undo her affairs as a condition, but what's the point? It's not like that would change anything. The news about the abortion really shook me. I can't stand the thought of being tied to her through alimony payments, reminded of her betrayal every month. So she agreed to the divorce terms at 5:43 p.m., and in about 2 months it'll all be official. I get to keep my house, my retirement, all my stuff, and there's no alimony either way. She walks away with $73,000 from our savings, and she's never to contact me again. I couldn't care less what happens to her now. For her sake and anyone else she meets, I hope she gets some therapy, but I'm done worrying about her. I don't feel relieved or lighter. The last few months have been horrendous, and I'm still not happy. That abortion revelation is haunting me, and I think it'll stick with me for a long, long time. I'm not sure what I'll do next, either soon or in the future. Maybe once the divorce is finalized, I'll feel some sort of release, but who knows? For now, I just want to be left in peace. I've been doing a lot of thinking, reflecting on every choice I've ever made, and I can't find any instance where I felt I did the right thing. It's a terrible mindset, but it's all I'm left with at the moment. The only small comfort is that, unlike last time, I managed to keep my possessions. I've decided I'm not going through this kind of mess again. Quick update on the divorce. It's not official yet. Being alone in the house was starting to weigh on me, so I ended up getting a new roommate. She's the most adorable little Latina I've ever laid eyes on. She's only about 8 inches tall at the shoulder, weighs about 5 pounds, and has a cute underbite. I can't decide whether to name her Maggie or high fructose corn syrup because she's incredibly sweet. Turns out I adopted a 1-year-old Chihuahua from the shelter. I just needed a happy face to come home to, and I found her. Another update. I received what I call my second failed marriage diploma in the mail today. The whole process was delayed by a massive snowstorm. Strangely enough, I'm neither happy nor sad about it. Some friends suggested celebrating, but celebrating failure doesn't sit right with me. Right now, I'm feeling pretty numb about the whole situation. I'm expecting it'll suddenly hit me when I least expect it. My ex called me today, and I answered, thinking there's no harm since everything's already done. Turns out she's a mess. She didn't say sorry, just asked what the point would be. I'm not even sure if she regrets anything she did, but it doesn't really matter anymore. Here's where it gets complicated. My son is pretty much the closest thing to a grandkid that her parents have ever had. He asked me if it's okay for him to keep in touch with them, and I said yes. But I'm struggling with how to interact with them without my ex being part of those conversations. It's like these situations just complicate everything, don't they? Despite everything, I do care about them. They're probably the closest thing to family on my side that my son will have. Oh, and about my little Chihuahua, I've decided to name her Shirshir. Thanks to whoever suggested that, it's a name that's easy to say and has stuck. She was a real lifesaver during the snowstorm. We had no power or heat, and temperatures were freezing, but she kept the bed warm like a little hero. So I've decided I'm going to take a big break from all of this. Maybe I'll come back when I'm ready to start dating again or just looking for something chill. There's always been this little voice in the back of my mind telling me that she doesn't really love me, that she's going to leave me or break me, and right now that voice is louder than ever. But at the moment, I'm actually doing okay. I'm seeing that being cautious, kind of like being scared of getting burned by a hot stove, is not a bad thing. I know I need a lot of time to heal and figure things out. I want to send good vibes to everyone here. Just because we've been treated poorly doesn't mean we're worthless. Stay strong and take care of yourselves. I love you guys. Update. Today marks exactly 1 year since I gave my ex the divorce papers, which also would have been our 7th anniversary. I woke up feeling pretty good, went for a run, made breakfast for my kid, and headed to work. Everything was going fine until around 10:30 a.m. when I was called to the office because there was a delivery of cookies for me, something she used to do every year. I just told my coworkers they could have them. Our customer service rep asked who sent the cookies, and when I mentioned no one had touched them yet, I was a bit annoyed, wondering who let her know where I work now. But other than that, I've been in a decent mood. She still finds ways to remind me she's around, like being late on her car payments. So the finance company ends up calling me. But here's a nice twist. I came home to a surprise party with barbecue and beer, all thanks to my amazing friends. They thought I might need a bit of cheering up. Honestly, my day was going pretty well before that, but ending it with a celebration was the perfect touch. Thanks to everyone for supporting me through my story. It means a lot, and I hope it helps other guys going through tough times. That's all for now. Remember to keep your spirits up and take care of each other.